I'm so frustrated. I worked on an art journal project for almost 3 hours, and something just isn't right. As I was reaching the last few steps, I had to stop because I truly didn't like it. This has happened a few times before, so I knew I had 3 options. 1, continue working on it either by doing it at that moment or coming back to it later when I'm less frustrated. 2, turn the page and start a new spread. Or 3, walk away and don't finish it. You will soon find out what decision I made, but first, let's start at the beginning. I wanted to create a simple mixed media video for my channel, starting with collaging, which is one of my favorite ways to add texture to a background. You can use book pages or DIY tissue paper like the one I made here, or even buy ready-made tissue paper. I rip and glue smaller pieces of the tissue onto my background using matte gel medium. I love doing this part as it gives the background so much texture. I think one of the mistakes I made and why I wasn't happy with the results is because I covered the whole page instead of leaving some white space. But I've covered the whole background before and it has worked okay, so I'm not sure what happened. Nevertheless, I dry my background really well and add a thin layer of watered down white gesso to prep my page for the next few layers. Next step is to add a 3D texture, and my favorite way to do this is using a stencil. I take my Lily stencil design and move it around to see where it would look best for the composition. I choose to put the design on the left side of the page and apply modeling paste to create it. Then I turn the design onto the other side of the page and add a smaller piece of the stencil design with the modeling paste. I feel this could have been a mistake as well, as I filled the page too much with the stencil design, instead of also leaving some white space. But I dry this really well, as it must be fully dry before the next step, which is always my favorite, adding color. You can use any water-soluble coloring medium. I choose to use watercolors, and I start applying them the way I usually do, by spraying water onto the edge of the page and then adding color. This technique requires a lot of water to dilute the colors I add with the paintbrush. I choose to add red and magenta first and let them drip down the page. Then I add some navy blue, which mixes beautifully to create a dark purple. I love how the colors flow down the page and how they mix together. So far this is looking great, and I just add more color until the page is way too wet, which is my signal to dry. And it needs to dry really well so I can add a second layer. I start adding my second layer of paint and add the exact same colors, which makes them even more vibrant. I even add some black, which I always feel adds so much depth. I use a black spray and apply it at the edge using the spout. Then I spray it with water and let it run down the page. The beauty of the black is that it doesn't remain black, but it turns into a beautiful midnight blue when it mixes with the other colors. I dry again really well because at this point I want to add some gold too. So I use my gold Lindy's magical powder and create a mixture on my mat to mix in between the colors. The gold adds a beautiful shimmer to the background. But it is at this point that I realize everything looks like a big mishmash. I can barely see the stencil texture, all the colors mixed together, and there's no white space. And so there's nowhere for the eye to focus on the composition. And in my opinion, it looks awful. I'm truly not sure how to salvage it. I am so frustrated, and I know I have those choices weighing on me in the back of my mind. I could continue working on it right away, or even take a break when I'm less frustrated and try to fix it. But believe it or not, I walk away. I leave my studio for a few days as I feel discouraged. But that's not the end of my story. I still come back to my art room to create other art journal pages, knowing this art journal is in the back of my mind taunting me. It takes a week for me to even look at it again, but it still makes me feel frustrated. Honestly, sometimes these things happen and we just can't finish a project, and that's okay. And since I still want to create that simple art journal video tutorial, I finally turned that page and start anew. I even add a sentiment that says, turn the page, because sometimes that's all you can do. The best thing is that the new page is so simple to create, and it actually turns out amazing. You can watch the process in this video right here.